can they hang on to the strait like they say?
Yes, there's nothing to keep them from doing so. They're in a very wonderful position. The strait, for reasons of geology and topography, is very difficult to control, but they have the means. We do not. This is not a place that you can easily assault on the ground or from the air and exert any real control or influence. They can, as you point out, effectively destroy everything on the western side of the Gulf. They can do that. I would argue the Iranians can destroy Israel as well, completely. And increasingly, there doesn't seem to be much incentive for the Iranians to do much else. I mean, if you're sitting in their position right now and you know that we're trying to build replacements, why wait around? You know, what's the incentive to wait? It's the Russian position in 2022 was, well, we have an inkling of what's going on over in eastern Ukraine. They captured plans that they had found in eastern Ukraine that talked about the reconquest of Crimea and striking deep into Russia. They knew what was being built up. They didn't appreciate how bad it was. They underestimated the enormous investment of time, money, and resources that we had made in the Ukrainians. But it became clear that there's no incentive to wait around to be destroyed. It's better to take it on, fight it, and win it, regardless of how long it takes. I think that's the Iranian position too. And I think it's the winning card, so to say. They can outlast everybody else. That's why I say it's war to the last missile. Who runs out first?
And you know, it's ironic and distressing. If that was the only issue we had with the Strait of Hormuz, it's a pretty bleak picture for us. But there's one other issue that makes it even more amazingly bad for our side, is that is point number one in this whole memorandum, is that the war has to end in Lebanon between Israel and Hamas, who wasn't even, neither one of them were even party to the MOU. Professor Morandi also spoke on that and laid out an even more clear Iranian position than they have to date on that topic.
Iranians have been very clear to the Americans. There will be no nuclear deal if Lebanon is evacuated, if it is not evacuated, if the war does not end. There will be no nuclear negotiations if this does not take place. So that's really up to the Americans. And in addition to that, the Iranians can make life for the Americans much more difficult in the Strait of Hormuz. If the Americans refrain from carrying out their obligations elsewhere, then the Iranians will feel that they are not obliged to allow all that many ships to pass through.
And that's actually what they're doing right now. But that's President Trump's primary political requirement: no nuclear weapons, et cetera. But he's saying it, and it's so weird because the Iranian side has always said we aren't going after nuclear weapons, so that's easy. We'll declare that and whatever. We'll negotiate that after these other things are done. But now they're saying we won't even start that process unless this happens. And so, Doug, I mean, tell me if you'd see it differently. But if that is truly the position of the Iranian government, there won't be any negotiations at all because Israel will never do what was required.
Well, from the standpoint privately of people in Washington and Israel, is very much the same. This nuclear business is almost a distraction. In fact, I would say it's a major strategic distraction. If you go back and look at the comments that were made before and immediately after the first major round of war that began in February and then concluded, I would argue, I guess at least temporarily before July. What was the focus? What did people talk about? They said, well, nuclear weapons, yeah, that's important, but it's really the ballistic missile arsenal. It's Iran's ability to threaten Israel. And that's the problem. What Morandi says is not wrong, but he needs to understand something. There is only one acceptable outcome for Israel in this war, and that is the complete destruction of Iran. Just as the only outcome right now that satisfies people in Kiev, and for that matter, in the globalist elites, not the populations of Europe, but the globalist elites, is the destruction of Russia. Just as they wanted to carve up Russia into smaller pieces, rape it and exploit it for its resources, that's exactly what the people in Washington and in Israel want to do to Iran. That has not changed. Now, the other issue on nuclear weaponry is as follows. If you were really all that concerned about preventing people from developing and fielding nuclear weapons, don't attack them. But that never really occurred to anybody because it really wasn't at the top of the agenda. Remember, the Israelis would probably welcome any excuse they could find to launch a nuclear weapon at Iran. And we would probably sit there and applaud. Fine, great, go ahead and do it. Don't wait for anybody in the United States to wake up, smell the coffee, and understand the utter insanity and folly of all of this. Don't expect anybody to take note of the views of the rest of the world, let alone the Chinese and the Russians. It's not going to happen. Nobody cares. Nobody gives a damn. So what are we dealing with? We're dealing with the Keens of the world, obedient servants of the Jewish lobby in the United States, well paid for their trouble, well paid for their efforts, richly rewarded for everything they say and do. And they are going to flog this horse until it's dead. That's Iran. So having said that, what is Professor Morandi's answer? Build more missiles, strengthen your defenses, get ready for the worst because it's coming. I don't think Iran has choice in that matter.